Hey, deserving listeners, Love is Blind. Normally, I would wear a tuxedo because this, I believe, is the a wedding episode beginning, but I feel not as festive this season. Let's watch.
From just the last 48 hours or what?
Yeah, I was a wreck last night. I didn't think that my credit score was gonna be that big of a deal. So I wasn't like afraid to tell her I'm a man of integrity.
You're the strong, rock, the cool, calm guy.
Okay, so we're learning a little bit more detail, I think. I don't think we knew this before, that it was his credit score that is the problem, which is interesting. Is that all that was the problem? So, because his credit score, he can't get a credit card. Is that what we're hearing? Okay, yeah, that's inconvenient and is a consideration for talking. You probably want to disclose that at the beginning. And Stacy can make her own choices about that. If that's a deal breaker for her, then that's a deal breaker. But it doesn't seem like a wise way to live in terms of, if you have a lot of love and you're compatible and they seem to be legitimately in love or that they have affection for each other, to allow that detail to sink the ship seems unwise. But, Stacy can live her life however she wants to. But we didn't see that, right? Stacy learned of this and complained that he didn't say anything about it. It wasn't the detail necessarily that they were fighting about. But we didn't hear their fight the previous, they had a fight and then we saw where they were making up about it. So we don't really know what the policy is. So I guess we'll find out. But yeah, this certainly is the perfect storm for a problem between Stacy and her family and him, right? Because it was all about the first class ticket and everything.
And she finally saw me just kind of lose it,
When you love someone and that emotional connection is there, like love has no credit score, love has no price tag,
yeah, that's one way of putting it. That's more romantic. But the dad and Stacy, to some extent, were saying the direct opposite, right? Love does have a credit score. Love requires first class tickets. I can't remember the exact phrase, but it was something along those lines. Yeah.
has no timeline.
Honestly, we have really good communication. Anytime problems would come up, we would get frustrated. We would have arguments. It was never anything toxic.
And I should mention that for some of you, you might have had past partners where their decisions actually impacted you negatively because of credit score and finances and that sort of thing. And they were a constant thorn in your side. You had kids together, you're married, and they were barely contributing. Think about an Asuelu Kalani situation. And you just have this person that is constantly saying, I'm on my way up, I'm getting a job, or I'm going to figure this out. And it just never happens. It's just a lot of empty promises, a lot of potentially lying or lying to themselves, never pulling their own weight. They sit at home all day and play video games and claim that, they looked for jobs that day. And meanwhile, you're working your ass off and you come home and then you do the chores and you take care of the kids and you're just looking at this person thinking what are you doing in my house? Get out of my... And it's very upsetting and it's exploitative of you. So if you have a history like that, then of course, when you are dating, this is going to be front and center. This is going to be one of those major boxes that you want to be checked when you're dating someone, that you're going to assess, you're going to inquire about. And to hear from someone that they had a low credit score and he said a few things, he said that he was interested in work-life balance. He was actually talking at the beginning of the show how I think he was saying he wanted to work less. He didn't want to have as much ambition and try to, because that's often the way that it is. You have to work 70 hours a week to impress the higher ups so you can get a promotion, and then you proceed to oppress your underlings by only elevating those people that work 70 hours a week, and the cycle just goes on and on. And so Izzy was saying that he wanted to step back from that. We didn't hear a lot of details, but we've only heard things that are saying that he doesn't want to actually prioritize money over happiness and love. There's been a number of statements that he said along those lines. And so if you dated someone like him, it would concern you. You would worry. You would say, are we going to head in that direction? Is this a sign of things to come? And it could be. But it's also possible that he is absolutely responsible regarding bills. He just doesn't want to live beyond his means. He just is happy with earning this amount and having this amount of work-life balance and having this amount of money to save. And maybe you don't go on the super fancy, expensive vacation, but you go on vacation. When I was younger, meaning that in my 20s and 30s, mainly if I ever went on vacation, it was always road trips because it was so much cheaper, and I would just sleep in my car. I went to the Grand Canyon once and slept in my car the entire time. I slept in my car at Grand Canyon. I found like some logging road, and I don't think anyone's around, so I just pulled over and I just slept in my car. And one of the things that they don't tell you about the Grand Canyon is the top, where you drive up to. It gets cold at night. It's very high elevation, and it gets like snow happens up there a lot. And even in the summer, it was cold, and I was in the car, and I was, saved money, and I had a great time. And some of the best vacations and experiences I ever had were on those kinds of vacations. And I can also talk about vacations I spent a lot more money on, and it didn't go as well. But anyway, so who knows what his kind of lifestyle is. And so I'm saying all this to recognize that there's a lot of nuance to this, right? Because, I've been saying, Stacy, give it up. Like, who cares about money? Love is love, and that's what you should be focusing on. Well, for some people, it's not that simple, right? And so maybe Stacy has a history with that sort of thing. Who knows? But, I just thought I would mention that. But the other side of the coin that I will reiterate, which is that when we pay attention to our needs, when we really pay attention to who we are and what our values are and how we can build a happy life, hoarding a bunch of wealth and going on super expensive, impressive vacations and having a super gigantic, impressive house is not typically actually meeting our needs. In fact, often it goes against our needs, and it is over-consuming, which can ruin the planet and potentially exploit other people, exploit workers from other countries. So I worry about Stacy and her family regarding their values and the way that the things that they emphasize seemingly from the edit, because for themselves, I worry about themselves. So I worry about Stacy and her family regarding what was presented to us in the edit anyway. I worry that they might be overemphasizing money and wealth and classist notions and ignoring their own needs. That's kind of the main thing I'm saying.
Right next to me up there.
And I've known you your whole life, and you've been through some stuff, so it's just another.
Yeah.
You're one of the strongest people I know, so.
No.
Okay, so we're hearing some reference to what he's been through. I'm curious what that is, but we could imagine the ballpark of what that is. And yeah, I feel bad for him and the young Izzy.
I don't care about whatever drama goes on the outside. I don't care about money. I don't care about anything. She always said that she needs someone that can stick it around when shit's hitting the fan, that doesn't run away. So I'm gonna keep fighting.
Okay, interesting. So he's saying that she always wants someone that'll stick around and not run away. Often when I hear things like that, I think, well, it sounds like maybe that's one of the primary hurts that she has regarding the past and worries that she has moving forward. She's had experiences with that sort of thing, maybe with romantic relationships. But when I hear that, I think what happened when she was younger. She burst out into tears that one time. I keep worrying I'm forgetting something that she mentioned about her early childhood. Oh my God, I just realized this whole time the view here was wrong. Sorry about that. Everyone in the comment section, we're only seeing the top. Sorry about that. Okay, it is now fixed. Sorry, where was I? Yeah, so I guess I wonder what Stacy went through, and if she did go through something along those lines with her parents, with her past relationships, is that defense that she seems to engage in, where she seems to become very callous, cold, and mean to other people, dismissive, and maybe even targeting people like Johnny. I wonder if that was a very necessary part of herself. Think of the internal family systems terms, like it would be the policeman or the security guard or the bouncer self, that part of the self needed to develop and become very robust and very strong and very able and very quick to come to the forefront to protect her.
It's what you do when you love someone.
Honestly, I'm so glad you guys are here.
I'm going up there. I'm saying yes.
Okay, so we're hearing that he's saying yes. Often, even when people say yes at the altar, they don't reveal that they're going to say yes earlier, so that's interesting. Unless he's playing some sort of game with her. I don't know. Probably not. Everything points in the direction that he was going to say yes. Yeah, makes sense.
He has a lot of things that he hasn't done that maybe I have. I mean, he just got his passport. His favorite restaurant, I think, is Chipotle. I'm like... It's almost like he doesn't
that's
have
a guy thing.
It definitely
Maybe not
is.
these guys, but that is a
I
like
love
Ray is a
Chipotle,
habit
but I'm like-
eater.
He's like also like he works out a lot, and I feel like guys like Chipotle because it's like the rice.
Also, what's wrong with having a favorite restaurant? What's wrong with saying that's your favorite restaurant? I hate, I mean, this touches so many angers that I have. One, elitism, classism, and also this notion that somehow people have the right to judge what you like. Like if I like a movie, like I liked the movie Eternals, the Marvel movie, the superheroes, that kind of thing. And most people hated it, which is fine. I liked it. I wouldn't put it in my top 100 movies of all time, but I think I gave it a 7 or an 8 or something. I liked the movie. I liked the message. It's an existential message around, it's an existential Sartre thing where essentially you at first are innocent and you believe that God is there to tell you what to do, and you believe that everything was predetermined and that God will tell you what to do, and you don't have responsibility for your life, essentially. But through the movie, the Eternals learn that God, their God, is actually just another creature that actually might not have good intentions. And I mean, it's not horrible intentions, but it's not necessarily good intentions. And so they have to make a choice for themselves. Do I side with this God that we followed, or do we do our own thing? You know, what do we do? And if we do our own thing, what do we do? What are our values? Normally, we just follow what God has been telling us to do. Point is I liked the movie, and people will be like, "Oh, you're an idiot. How could you pause? That's the dumbest movie." And it's just like, hey, fine. You know, you didn't like it. It's fine. My issues around this stem from when I was young. Being Japanese American, almost everything we ate was very different than all the white people in my neighborhood. And I would have to hide it. When you're just constantly getting this message that's just like, what the hell is that? And ew, and gross, and it smells. It's like, I like this. I'm not telling you to eat it. I'm eating it. Is it okay that I eat this? Is that okay with you? It's not doing anything to you. It's not going to leap off the plate and strangle you. Like, get over yourself. Did you not understand that there are other cultures possibly in the world, maybe even next door? And that privilege, just like, shut up. And this is that.
maybe I have. I mean, he just got his passport.
And then she said, I mean, he just got his passport. What is wrong with him? So we knew that this was there. I guess I was just hoping, I had a delusion that somehow this would have been erased in the few weeks between the meeting with the parents and the wedding day, because maybe more contact with Izzy realigned her way of thinking, but that is ridiculous. Why would she change? There's not a huge reason for her to change. Izzy doesn't really require her to change along these lines, but she's like, he just got his passport. We've already been over this. It's like, there's probably a lot of people, Stacey, that don't have a passport, especially when you think about the entire world. Do you think that everyone can afford to travel out of the country? Do you think everyone wants to travel out of the, like what?
His favorite restaurant, I think, is Chipotle. I'm like, it's almost like he doesn't
That's
have
a guy thing.
It definitely
Maybe not
is.
these guys, but that is a
I
like
love
Ray is a
Chipotle,
habit
but I'm like-
eater.
He's like also like he works out a lot, and I feel like guys like Chipotle because it's like the rice.
And they're all trying to make these excuses. It's a guy thing. Oh, well, he works out a lot. How about you just say, hey, he likes what he likes, and no one can judge that. Just let him like what he likes.
Protein,
I know
the veggies.
I'm well aware, but I'm like,
and they don't have to do it themselves.
what about like Peruvian food? Have you ever gone to a Mediterranean restaurant? Like, I don't think he doesn't know what to
Well,
order.
you're like
So those are high class things, apparently. I don't know. He wouldn't even know what to order. There's so many things that are bothersome to me about this. And then sister says, well, you're like the girl with all the hip spots.
You are tough to crack, but when those walls are broken, you are the most tender and sweet girl that I've ever met. That's why I'm in love with you, because
Yeah, I think that is accurate given what we saw, that she is very tough. It's tough to get beyond that tough outer shell, but once you get past that shell, then she can be very sweet. And I think we saw that. So, it's interesting that he sees that. He knows her a billion times better than we would, but that confirms what I was thinking.
I do.
Okay. I will say, the way that Stacy is talking, it sounds like she's going to say, I don't. But we've seen that before on the show, and we've seen her seemingly say things like that, but then later there's a lot of warmth that comes out of her. So, yeah, but she said something just before when they were giving these speeches. She's like, if I were to get married, it would be with you. Something like that. That doesn't sound very encouraging, right?
I love you more than I can even explain. I want to make you happy. I want to give you that reassurance. And I do want you, and I want to say yes. But I would be doing you and I a disservice right now to say that I do when I feel like there's a lot of things that we need.
So, sounds like an I don't. Is she saying, let's continue dating? What does she mean by there's a lot of things that we need? Is that credit score related? What are we talking about?
And more than anything, we need time. We haven't had time. And that's something that I need.
Okay. So, well, I don't know. Maybe that's a deal breaker for him, but that is the logical thing to do. I mean, the truly logical thing, if this was the case, would be for Stacy to say, I'm not going on the altar. I'm not dragging everyone to the wedding. I'm not going to put him in that position. I'm going to tell Izzy, I want to be with you, but I don't, this is too quick. So let's leave the show and date. Or maybe even she told him behind the scenes that she was going to say these sort of things. So are they still dating? I wonder.
So for me today, I can't. I hope you understand that.
I understand. And I love you.
Okay. I don't think we've ever seen that before, right? That there's a I don't at the altar and they smile and kiss and then everyone claps. Well, I'm guessing the family and everyone's like, yeah, give it some more time. Why are we doing this anyway?
I don't think we're doing this in the right order, but that's okay.
Good. As you should.
And given his reaction, it lends itself to the possibility that he knew, but he's also very accommodating, and she was being at least somewhat clear that she wanted to be with him after the altar. So, okay.
I've always been your biggest fan, your biggest supporter, and you know that. And it's fair to the both of us to be in that right spot.
And in the past, I would wonder about when there's an I don't, often one person will walk off in that dramatic way, like, oh, and then they'd walk off, or the I don't would walk off or something. And I wondered if production put them up to it. It's like, okay, you got to do this, then you got to walk off. Because some of the altar scenes, I'm like, there's an I don't, and I'm thinking, okay, well, why don't you just continue having a conversation? Why does there have to be this dramatic visual, like stomping off, and then you just re-engage and have a conversation? So the fact that they're still on at the altar points in the direction that production either doesn't do that or didn't do it this season, or Izzy didn't listen, because that would be the logical thing, that Izzy would be walking off, right? Or maybe her, I don't know.
Okay.
Well, there you go. Why does that happen? I don't know. It's so silly. It's just symbolism, I guess, suppose. But why don't they both just walk out together? I thought, are they agreeing to be together after the altar? Why does she? It's so dumb. But, to me, it feels like the person that is being rejected should be the one to stomp off or walk off first, or I don't know.
Timeline. We could die tomorrow. It's like she's always trying to find something wrong. I just want to be loved the way that I love. Bottom line, I deserve that.
Okay, so it sounds like he's saying, I don't know what he's saying, but it sounds like he's saying, I don't want to be with you. And he's saying that she's always looking for something wrong. And it's interesting how after the altar, he was crying with his mom, and she was saying things, I mean, in terms of the edit, God knows what really happened, but, I could imagine it being consistent with the edit, that she's like, yeah, I feel fine. She literally said that, I feel fine. And, it's consistent. She was like that throughout this whole thing, right? She does have a heart. I think it's just behind something, right? And I think there might be some life that she has to live so that she can actually fully comprehend. Because, if she has been cutting herself off for a long time, then her heart and her empathy might be stunted in a sense, right? So, and I'm not saying she's supposed to be falling apart, crying all the time, but just, and it's edited, so who knows? But I don't know, she just doesn't seem to be that concerned, and she doesn't seem to be that sorry about, because he said, I do at the altar. You'd just think you would have more empathy, or just like, I'm just so sorry. And maybe she did, but it's not in the edit. I mean, she's being nice, but I just feel bad for him, I guess, because it doesn't look like he was informed by her prior. It looks like he was wondering if she would say yes or no, but he was hoping for yes, and now he's really reckoning with the fact that she's saying no.
And I saw Titanic pop up on the TV, and that's what I picture love being. It's just like unconditional, doesn't matter.
Well, that's interesting. So you picture love where you sacrifice your life and give the flotation device to Stacy while you drift into the dark waters and die. Yeah, what he's talking about is, that you are really, really in love, right?
And that's the whole point of this, is does it matter? Does a credit score matter? Does a car I drive matters? Where I go to fucking dinner matter? None of that matters to me.
Interesting. So it sounds like he had heard her disdain or her dismissiveness or her criticism or her ridicule of him regarding those issues, right? I mean, the where he goes to dinner, I didn't know if he knew what she thought about the way she was talking about him in that way. So
it makes me wonder, why are you 33 and single and not married? I'm 29 years old and I can give you everything that a fucking rich 45-year-old man that you always go for and always fell with can't give you.
Yeah, I mean, he's in a rough spot. It looks like he's intoxicated, which makes me think that they filmed this interview well after, or a ways after this scene with Stacy. He went away, had a couple or more than a couple drinks, and then he's being interviewed. And so he's in pain, and he said what he said. He's like, she's 33 years old, still not married. And I think probably what he's getting at is that he thinks that she is holding back against her own needs, that she's focusing on things that actually are counter to her own needs, which, could be true. And it's possible, given what we saw, I mean, the tenderness that they had, if we just took away the first class tickets and the credit score and everything, and those things matter, of course, they're not irrelevant, but if we just took them away, they did seem to have a compatibility. And given her tough shell that she has, he was perfect for her in that way. And I've seen couples that are like this, where, because he comes across as kind of a doormat, but also kind of confident in his in his passivity, right? That he doesn't cry himself, seemingly, who knows, but he doesn't seem to cry himself to sleep every night going like, no one loves me, oh my God. I think he is both nice, passive, slow to react with anger, but also confident in himself such that when he is giving in that way that, he would have to bridge the gap with Stacy and let things go. I think he knows, well, she's overreacting. I'm not going to take it personally. I think that's what was going on. So that fits perfectly with her, right? Then that would allow her, as she says, to go past her shell and to a very emotional place, a very connected place, loving place that she might not have ever experienced, or it's been a long time. So it seemed to have that potential, and to have it destroyed by these kinds of things, it just seems unfortunate for her in particular, because if she still has these ideas, what's going to happen to her in the future? Because if she retains these ideas, which you can imagine that she would, then she runs the risk of either marrying someone that doesn't actually meet her emotional needs, but meets the needs of the credit score and stuff, or she's going to be with someone that does meet her emotional needs, but she rejects them again because, it's worrisome. For him, I think he is potentially more set up for success in that arena in the future. And if we even just look at his credit score, I imagine that he's on the mend, right? That in the future his credit score and all those things will be higher. I don't know that, but it seems likely.
I'm sad.
And I should also mention that a lot of you might feel like you identify with Izzy, that you have been rejected purely because of your class or your credit score or your income level, whether it's in a romantic relationship or for a friendship or a job or something, that you feel like you're not good enough. Our society is completely based on this notion that your worth is very much tied to how much wealth you have and how much money you have. That's why everyone aspires for that, and that's why Izzy would be rejected by a lot of people because of this. And it's awful, right? If you've experienced that of given where you come from or you're just your own life choices, that you would be rejected, that you'd be a substandard human, that even though you give and you give and you give like him, and you work on a relationship and you really try and you develop a relationship and a connection, just the fact that you have a credit score, you're not good enough. You are lesser. You are not worthy of love or a relationship. It's pretty awful to think about. And I couldn't really follow what they were exactly communicating to each other, if anything. But in the edit anyway, he's like, I feel like I need this. And then she walks away, and I didn't show this clip, but he was saying, I think she's relieved by the fact that I broke up with her, because I think she was just biding her time so that she could leave me, because I think she's always wanted to, I think she's wanted to leave me for a long time. And I think that even though she's saying all these things, I think, yeah, she's probably happy that she's done with me. Okay, so that looks like the end of the story for them. I actually found some articles. There was an article published today in People, an interview with Stacy, and I'm just going to read some of the clips from it. It says, it's quoting Stacy, apparently they interviewed her, and it says, I think that we were both ready for marriage, and I think that we saw marriage differently. The difference between relationships and marriages is you're binding everything together. That's serious. You need to know everything, the not so fun topics. So I think she's talking about money and finances. I think that Izzy saw it much more romantic, where it's like, if you're in love, you say yes. And I want to feel that way as well. But I know that the number one reason for divorce is finances. Yeah, so there's that idea. And that's, as I've talked about before, it's not necessary. It depends on the research study. Number one reason for divorce isn't necessarily finances. It depends on the method of inquiry. It depends on the culture. It depends on a lot of things. But It also depends on the way you ask the question, because if you ask couples, check these boxes, and you give them a limited set of things to choose from, then yeah, they might say finances. But if you actually interview people and ask them, why did you get divorced? And they say, well, finances. Well, tell me more. Often you will find that the way they talked about finances were the problem. It's not that people got divorced because it's like, you're not earning enough money, and so da-da-da. And now people do get divorced because of that, but it's not to, say that you have a disparity in income and there is some conflict around that. Well, if there's a way to talk to each other, if this person is saying, hey, I'm really sorry, I'm working on things, I have depression, I have anxiety, or I don't have skills yet, I'm still, I have insecurities, I'm going to therapy, I'm doing these things, so it's going to be a while, then this person is probably much more likely to be okay with that, right? Not necessarily. But if this person is just like, screw you, leave me alone, I'm going to play my video games, then that's different, right? The financial situation is the same, but the relationship and the communication and the empathy is very different, right? So going on. So I would love to run away and do that whole fairy tale, but if you don't look at money the same way, that's also an issue. And, it just brings back to the thing that I was saying originally. It's just like, well, then why'd you go on Love is Blind? You should have gone on some other reality show that has a bunch of rich men. I mean, why'd you do this? And also, why did you agree to become engaged to a man in the pods without seriously vetting him? If you had this value, then okay, in the pods, before you even go down a road of dating someone, you just like, so I need to know your finances. You gotta lay it out. How much money? What's your credit score? How much debt do you have? What's your future income prospects look like? It's a weird way to live, but she's free to live that. Just screen the individual from the beginning. Don't drag Izzy through all this, right? Okay, so they ask her about the credit score thing and whether it played a role in the divorce, and she says, it played a big role, but it wasn't just the credit that was news to me. He had a new job. He couldn't really give me a roundabout number as far as what he could expect to make, whether it was low or high. He didn't get insurance or benefits with that job. All I'm hearing and seeing is that. All I'm hearing and seeing is that I am responsible for us if something, so she's saying, all I'm hearing is that I'm responsible for that sort of stuff if those things happen. So that's interesting. If that's true, that's not just that he wasn't earning as much money as she was. It sounds like he was being shady about it, which stands to reason given the way he was approaching the credit score thing, right? And like that whole scene when they were talking about it, it appeared, I don't know, but he appeared to be in denial, or he was denying the fact that he was avoiding telling her that he doesn't even have a credit card because of certain things that have happened. He was just like, I just never came up. You just think, well, given everything that's happened, you'd think that would be, especially after you met the family, you just think that would be the first thing. You'd be, oh my God, after meeting your family, I got to tell you something. I was going to tell you eventually, but this is an emergency. And he just acted like, I don't know, it just never came up before. And of course, he has a lot of reasons to be terrified because he doesn't want to lose her, right? And he probably has a lot of shame around it anyway, because everyone does in our society about it, or most people do. Okay, well, so we learned so that's an interview that presumably happened recently. So she is still saying those things. So it sounds like they didn't date after the show, which is probably best for both of them. And, I wish them both well. In conclusion, I do worry about her. A lot of times in these situations, like with Taylor and JP, even though we can agree that Taylor was the one that was being treated unfairly, I don't worry about Taylor in the future. I do worry about JP for not only just what we saw, but what likely lies beneath. The same goes with Stacy and Izzy. I don't super worry about Izzy, although he could be exploited by another person that is like that. But I more worry about Stacy, that she has been through a lot more than what we could possibly imagine. Well, not more than we could possibly imagine, but a lot more than what was presented. It seemed like there was a lot below. Her sisters and her mom also seemingly were, they seemed to be communicating to Stacy in a way that suggested that they concluded that Stacy had a lot of issues and a lot of pain, a lot of wounds. I detected that a little bit. They seemed to be trying to get her to open up. Stacy also said that she had closed herself off from relationships and from love and from emotion for so long, she had worried that that was permanent, and that Izzy actually helped her to realize that she isn't permanently like that, and she really liked that. So maybe some doors have been opened for her in the future. But I worry that if she just focuses on the credit score, that she will either be lonely and sad the rest of her life, or she will marry the wrong person. Yeah, I kind of worry about that. I don't know. And maybe she'll find someone that has it all. It's possible, for sure. But I hope that she screens people from the beginning and doesn't. She makes sure she tells people up front. You know, that's another thing to talk about, right? That she complains that he didn't mention the credit score, but he could complain, look, you didn't tell me that this was a deal breaker. You should have told me in the pods. Our relationship was fine, and I could have saved a lot of energy and bother and heartache if you just would have told me in the pods that this was a deal breaker, and then I could have told you, oh well, here's my situation, and then you would have just rejected me, and I wouldn't have my heart broken. I'd just be like, oh, okay, well, that one woman had a box that I didn't meet, that I couldn't check, so moving on with other people. He could have a similar complaint about that, right? About withholding that information. I don't know, but Izzy isn't the sort of person to bring that up, which I guess does make me worry about him.
Yes, I do.
Okay, so interesting. A lot. I haven't shown the clips because it's all just them talking about how much they love each other and how well they get along and how well they communicate. It was interesting, Milton's interaction with his family. They were trying to give him advice, and Milton seemed just to be like, yeah, okay. He didn't seem to be interested in their advice at all, and the dad also said that him and the mom fought a lot growing up. And so I think that Milton might possibly be on the avoidant attachment style side of the spectrum because of those details. But specifically for people that are avoidantly attached, they tend to be very independent, pathologically independent. When I am insecure attachment, when I am triggered or I come from that place, I will become pathologically independent, meaning that I don't ask for help and I don't need help and I'm fine and I'm independent, but that denies me the ability for support, the ability to express my emotions and signal to other people that I need help or that I need support or that I exist in the world, that sort of thing. So I just wanted to mention that. But and I don't know to what extent that is true or to what extent, even if it were true, to what degree it was. But anyway, yeah, a lot of what they were saying seemed to indicate that they're both going to say yes, which I have to say kind of surprises me, but also doesn't surprise me. If anyone was going to say no, I thought it would have been her. So I'm pretty sure this is going to be a yes, but we'll see. If they are not yes, then this season is a bust, is it not?
I do. I thought you were going to say more words.
Okay. It's yes. Surprising. Particularly going back to, if I think about where I was at when they came out of the pods, I would have said this couple was pretty unlikely. I would have thought that Stacy and Izzy would have been yes based on how their chemistry was, particularly when they were at the getaway. I don't think anyone thought JP and Taylor were going to work out after they met in the hallway. So, yeah, interesting. Well, yeah, I could see it working. Who knows?
I think my inability to open up has definitely pushed women away. It's definitely something that I know I need to work on.
Yay! JP. Yes. JP. Good. JP. Good.
I do regret not creating that environment where Leah felt vulnerable and where she felt safe. That is something that I'm going to work on.
Okay, yeah, I think that's a way to put it. It's hard to know if he is really getting to the core of it, but he did say the word safe. He says, I regret or something. I regret that I didn't make Aaliyah feel safe to be able to talk about difficult topics with me, and I need to work on that. So, if that's true, if he's actually being truthful with that statement, it's not just some diplomatic political thing he's saying, then that's a good sign for him in particular, because people aren't going to want to be around him if he has that tone and that bulldozery way of being. It just makes me wonder what he went through that he felt like he had to resort to that way of being. I mean, he really steps into a mode that we've seen. He dipped into it in that conversation with Aaliyah, but just barely. We saw the full mode later on, and that's going to push people away.
I believe love is blind because in my life, the emotional connection brings out the physical connection. And I've grown and learned that sometimes love is very unexpected. You just kind of have to follow your heart, and
Are they still together? I feel like I want to look it up now that the show's over. I suppose we'll find out at the reunion. I won't spoil myself. I'm sure you know by now. But if they are still together, then in an odd way, they became the shining light of the season. I mean, I guess Milton and Lydia, it's just hard to know with them. And given what we saw with Lydia and Uche, it's possible that Uche was accusing her of nonsense. But what if even half of it is accurate? And then Lydia's relationship with Aaliyah, it's hard to know. But and Johnny had some issues, but Chris certainly didn't have any in the edit. God knows what he's really like, but I feel like with this season, I was talking with my wife about this, that usually it's hard to know why a show works, why it's entertaining, why it compels us to watch. And I think one of the elements that they've had in previous seasons, but not this one, is that there's always at least one couple that you can bank on not having any drama, that it's just the love story, it's the fairy tale. Your Brett and Tiffany's, your Cams and Laurens, who else? Is there anyone in that category? There's not many, but at least you want that. It gives you some kind of example at that end of the spectrum so that you can feel like when you're watching this, maybe it's like a rhythm thing to the episodes where they can edit in those kind of scenes, and you're like, oh, okay, I can relax, and then there's the drama. Whereas this season, it just felt like there was never a home base to land on, and you would think that would make it for a better show because there's more drama. But I feel like, at least for me, I feel like I need that to, I don't know, make me feel better about watching, I guess, which is kind of weird because it's like, why would just one couple be that way when all the drama is still there? I don't know. It's just the rhythms, I guess. So are they that couple? I don't know. What do you think? Okay, there's a little bit left. I'm guessing there's going to be a preview of next week, which I don't want to watch. So, all right, well, tune in next time when I watch the reunion, which I'm guessing is coming next week. And everyone out there, please take care of yourself and believe in love, because we all deserve it. We really, really do.